The sun rose heavy and restless over the village, as though the sky itself carried a burden. The air was dry, brittle, and uneasy. Birds did not sing their usual morning chorus, and the river, once the heartbeat of the land, had retreated further, leaving cracked banks and pools of stagnant water. A hush hung across the settlement, as if every breath carried both fear and expectation. It was in this fragile silence that Kweku stirred from his mat. His sleep had been broken, haunted by dreams of parched earth and voices carried on the wind. In every vision, the drum echoed, speaking in rhythms that only he seemed to understand. "The river will run dry," it warned again and again, the words pounding into his skull like a heartbeat. And now, the river's retreat had become undeniable. What was once dismissed as superstition was beginning to gnaw at the edges of belief. But belief alone would not save the people. Kweku rose, his small frame tired but his eyes burning with determination. In the shadows of the hut, Alma waited. She had not slept either. Her face, youthful yet worn with worry, searched his. "You heard it again, didn't you?" she whispered. Kweku nodded. "It speaks more clearly now. And last night, I saw something inside the drum. Something written." Alma leaned closer, her voice barely a breath. "I only brushed my hand across its surface when no one was watching. My fingers found carvings, hidden. Almost as if the drum carries its own story within." Alma frowned. "If the elders find out, they will not listen to me, Alma. They never have. But if I can show them what I saw, they must believe." Her gaze hardened with quiet loyalty. "Then we'll show them." The first signs of unity, small, fragile, but growing. By midday, Kweku, Alma, and the young herbalist Kwabena gathered near the edge of the forest. Kwabena was unlike the others in the village, curious, observant, less bound by tradition. He had watched quietly as the elders mocked Kweku, but he could no longer ignore the changes in the land. "The river's song is wrong," Kwabena said, crouching low by the cracked soil. "The earth should be damp here, but it is dry. And look at the ants, they carry their eggs uphill, away from the water. Even they prepare for what is coming." Kweku's heart leapt. "Then you believe me?" Kwabena nodded. "Belief matters less than truth. And the truth is written everywhere, in the sky, in the earth, in the animals. If the drum warns us, then we must listen." "What is your plan?" Together, the three devised it. If the river would dry, they must store what water remained. Hidden gourds, hollowed calabashes, clay pots, anything that could hold even a drop must be filled. They would work quietly, away from the eyes of those who mocked them. But secrecy is fragile, and the village was full of eyes. That night, while the moon washed the courtyard in pale silver, the three slipped between huts, carrying pots filled with water. Kweku's heart beat fast with both urgency and fear. Each drop of water felt heavier than stone, for it carried the weight of survival. But not all hearts beat for life, some beat for pride. Chief Otto, sharp-eyed and heavy with authority, watched from the shadows. He had long dismissed Kweku as a troublesome boy, arrogant, disobedient, and meddling where children had no right to tread. To see villagers following him even in secret threatened more than Otto's patience. It threatened his power. Later, when the children rested, Chief Otto acted. He crept to their hiding place, where pots of precious water were stored beneath woven mats. With deliberate malice, he tipped them, spilling lifelines into the dirt. He whispered under his breath, "They will not obey a child while I still draw breath." The ground drank greedily, and by morning, the hiding place was dry. When Kweku discovered the sabotage, despair clutched his chest. Alma wept. Kwabena clenched his fists in rage. But Kweku stood silent, staring at the damp soil where their efforts had been erased. His silence was not defeat, it was resolve hardening into steel. That evening, Kweku returned to the courtyard alone. The drum loomed in the center, silent, massive, a relic of mystery. He knelt beside it, running his hand along its carved frame. Then, with trembling fingers, he pressed into the grooves he had felt before. There, beneath centuries of polish and ritual touch, lay inscriptions. Symbols etched deep, their lines curved and jagged like flowing water and broken rock. The boy gasped. It was a language not taught in the village, older than any tale. Yet somehow, as though guided by unseen hands, Kweku understood. It spoke of a king who once ruled with wisdom and foresight. In his final days, he carved his prophecy into the drum, knowing that one day his people would need to hear it again. When the river runs dry, a voice will rise from the least among you. Ignore it, and perish. Hear it, and live. Kweku's eyes filled with tears. The drum was not cursed. It was truth. And the truth was alive within him. The next days were chaos. The river shrank to a trickle, its once proud current reduced to puddles. Women carried heavy pots farther and farther, returning with less each time. Goats bleated weakly, their ribs showing. The air itself seemed thirsty. Panic spread like wildfire. Some cried out that the gods had abandoned them. Others whispered that Kweku had brought the curse himself. In the meeting ground, the elders gathered, their voices raised in argument. For the first time, cracks showed in their unity. "This boy is a danger," one cried. "No, perhaps he is chosen," another countered. "The river dries because of our sins." "No, because we refuse to listen." And in the middle of the storm, Chief Otto stood tall, his voice booming over the rest. "This boy poisons your minds with childish nonsense. Would you all bow to a child when your elders yet live? Shame upon you." Kweku stepped forward, trembling but unyielding. "It is not nonsense. I have seen the drum's message. The prophecy is carved inside it. The river runs dry because we refuse to prepare. If we do nothing, we will die." Gasps filled the crowd. Some stared in fear. Others in doubt. But some, just some, looked at the boy with the first flickers of faith. And then, the moment that silenced all doubt. The drum began to play. No hands touched it. No drummer sat before it. Yet its deep, thunderous voice filled the courtyard, vibrating in every chest. The rhythm pounded like the heartbeat of the earth. Elders froze. Children clung to their mothers. Even Chief Otto stumbled back. The beats were no longer symbols, no longer riddles. They were words, booming and clear for all to hear. The river will run dry. 7 sons remain. The crowd screamed. Some fell to their knees. Others fled. But all heard. All knew. And in the center of the chaos stood Kweku, his small figure steady, his eyes fixed on Chief Otto. "You called it a curse," Kweku said, his voice cutting through the panic. "But this is truth. And you tried to silence it. You tried to silence me." Chief Otto's face burned red with fury, but he could not speak. For in that moment, every eye was no longer on him. They were on the boy. The boy the drum had chosen. The prophecy had stepped into daylight. And nothing would ever be the same. The story was no longer whispers in the dark. No longer the burden of a single boy. It was truth, undeniable, unshakable. But truth is dangerous. Truth divides. And as the people's hearts wavered between fear and hope, the question became clear: would they embrace the prophecy, or destroy the boy who carried it? The wind rose, carrying dust across the silent riverbed. The drum stood still once more, but its voice lingered in every ear. The curse, or the truth? The choice had arrived.